All right. Welcome to another episode on the People Productivity Channel, a channel devoted to helping you become a better you. Because in life, you are the product and a better you is the solution. Today, I have with us a very, very interesting guest, Chris Gilbert. You know, it's interesting as you go through life, you run into people and then you find that they've got an interesting story. Chris called me recently to see if I was going to come to this Mercer County HR conference again. And sure enough, I did sign up, met him at the meeting, hadn't met him before. We got into a conversation and he's had a unique life journey. And what's most fascinating about life in general is that there's 7.5 billion people and each person is on an absolutely unique journey of their own. They're born in a different time, place, parents, different surroundings, different experiences. All of this together combines to create, a unique individual. And we're going to talk a little bit about Chris's journey today, because what interested me in the conversation with Chris is that he had become very self-aware. And self-awareness is something that many people, I think, struggle with. That famous saying, know thyself, may be the hardest two-word thing to accomplish in life. People spend a lot of time in life, ultimately, when they become self-aware, trying to find out, who they are, why they do the things they do, what are the reactions they have. Chris has dug into this based on his own background, and we're going to talk a little bit about his journey and self-awareness and some tips and tricks that, he's used to become more self-aware and to actually transform himself. So, Chris, maybe you could say hi to the audience, just briefly introduce yourself.
Good morning or afternoon, everybody. I thank you for having me, Frank. This is exciting. This is awesome. Like you just said, I think you used the word mastering, because I think we ever master anything. But said I've got a good grasp on the self-awareness, and it's kind of like anything. It's always evolving. You think you've mastered something, and then you get bulldozed by it because you think you've mastered it. New things happen, new information comes in, new life events, and you have to stay on top of it, or you'll get left behind. So it's just like with anything else. You've never mastered it. You're just always a work in progress.
Yeah,
hopefully
it's very interesting because, so is life. The world is always advancing. If you go back to like the late 1800s, around 1900, all the physicists thought they understood everything about the world. Newtonian physics, they had mastered it, they understood it. Chemistry, they didn't think there was a lot more to learn, and suddenly quantum physics shows up, an entirely new branch, completely unexplored, and they continue to explore that to this day. So the world itself is on a journey where people's understanding is growing all the time. The human race is learning more, and you've learned a lot more. Tell us a little bit about your early upbringing. What happened? What are the forces that shaped who you are?
Sure. So my life jumps all around to tell the story, and I'd like to tell all the different parts, but we've only got so much time, so I'll try and be brief. The earliest parts that I really remember, are very tough, and I urge anyone who has had a tough life like me, the true healing from it came like this: just talking to people, not necessarily being recorded, but just talking to people. So first thing I want to, in all this, say is, if you have a story like mine and it's been rough and you've never talked to anyone, step one, find someone you can trust and talk to just like this and get it out. And that's where real healing will begin. Mm-hmm. So for me, what did I have to heal from? Well, my earliest memories were in a homeless shelter. My mom found herself 20 years old with a kid, a baby. And then long story short, she moved from Ohio to North Carolina, and then found herself moving when I was age 5 or 6 to Georgia. And being 25, 26 years old, she had a tough childhood and didn't have a really good grounding of how to be a mother. And then came in the tougher parts, where abuse started to happen to her, and then it just kind of snowballed down. So my earliest years were abuse and I guess really abandonment, because the adults around me, were too busy seeking their fulfillment that I was just thrown in to survive, and had stuff taken out on me.
Instability, fear, right?
Yes, yes, it was ingrained. And the studies show that whatever happens to you before 7 is deeply ingrained into
Yes.
your psyche. And so a lot of this stuff was happening right before and right after 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is in some ways the backdrop here because, what the research shows is that during the first 7 years of life, kids are in theta mode. And theta mode is more or less the mode where you're in a hypnotic state and you're basically downloading life. And that downloaded information and those experiences that imprint on the brain become your subconscious, and it sets up the rules and needs
Mm-hmm.
other things that are going to control a lot of what happens to you in your life. And learning what was recorded becomes a journey of its own, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I like what you said. It sets the rules. And what's great, I can't remember exactly how the saying goes, but like rules are meant to be broken, right, or something like that. Meant,
Yeah.
not broken. I've had to in the last few years discover these rules that I put on myself or that was put on me from all this, and discover that it was my own rules or it was the rules put on me that aren't necessarily fully accurate. So yeah, it's a deep dive into the conversation of finding out where you came from and questioning what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we go through our days and we just habit. We were talking about this a minute ago. Habit is one of the drivers. We're creatures of habit.
Oh, yeah.
If you never question it, you just go with it and you just end up where you end up. So for me, like you were saying a minute ago, there's a lot of fear and instability that was ingrained in, and it was always just driving the habit. And so I was always making the best of whatever scenario I had and
Yeah.
never going, okay, here's how things are. Here's how it looks like they're going. How can it be different? What can I do differently? Not just physically, but up in here.
Yeah. Well, I remember you telling me when we met and talked for the very first time, and then had a discussion, pre-discussion before this interview, that kind of your beginning of your self-awareness happened when you finally met your dad. Is that right?
One of the events that led up to that was the very first thing that I go back to and really has me questioning things,
Yeah.
questioning life and everything. And so what happened was there was an incident at work and I lost a friend, and I had never lost anyone outside of they moved, right? It wasn't like death. So at 20, no, yeah, 20 something that happened. And so I had to question, how do I live through this? And in that, going to the counselor, and then the counselor discovered and dug up that when I found my dad when I was 18, and my dad's this really awesome guy. There's a lot of great traits that are in my DNA that really began to wake up after I found them. And then my brain decided to formulate this story. And I didn't even know it really formulated the story. I don't think I thought to make it happen, but it formulated the story that if my dad had always been around, I would have been more extroverted like I always wanted to be and now am. I would have been more confident. I would have been better. I would have insert whatever into the blank, better. It would have just been better. And in the series of this counseling sessions, this came up, and then the counselor looked at me and goes, well, you don't know that. Surely I do. Absolutely, 100%. Life would be better. She goes, that's a story you've made up. That's not reality. Reality is what reality is. And what you've done is you made a story for the good. What you don't know is it could have went worse. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. If my dad was there starting at age 6 and then the session ended and I'm driving home and I was like, she don't know. Right? When you're confronted with truth and you're not ready for it, you normally push back or twist or something, right? There's that reaction. But it took about 3 days. I remember taking about 3 days, and on the third day, and kept popping into my head through the first 3 days. And I said, you know what? She's right. And immediately when I consciously was like, yes, this is accurate, I wish I could explain how it happened and why it happened. It was like an elephant got up off my chest. And that was one of my first real confrontations with truth and reality versus what I thought, and becoming self-aware.
And becoming the authentic you in some ways, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Accepting who you are.
Yes.
Self-acceptance is a big thing, actually.
And for me, it took quite some time. I'm up here in New Jersey now at 34 years old. That
Yeah.
was back at 22. And it's only been through, again, some strife in the last 4 years of having moved up here and what I've gone through up here that really led to me even becoming more of who I am. And that's, again, it was through a tough time. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I think you've got to embrace your journey, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
your journey. This is it. And much of much of how you feel about that journey is shaped by the impressions and beliefs that you take away from what happens. So you
Mm-hmm.
take positives or negatives from almost anything. And what you end up choosing to believe in so many ways does in fact shape your reality because that becomes you. And
Mm-hmm.
so this interesting journey you've been on to find yourself. Too bad you had to come to Jersey to find more strife.
I love Jersey. Some of the theories that are in my book came from talking to people from Jersey, and that conversation starting with what's better, Jersey or Savannah? Because our human
Yeah,
brains, we always
yeah,
got to have something's better than something else. And for me, I always tell them it's cakes and pies. I personally myself, I'm not going to compare a cake or a pie. If they're both there, I'll eat them both, and I'll enjoy it.
yeah,
And that's what I would tell people: Savannah's cake, Jersey's pie. I love them both. I think they're great. But when you move up to Savannah, move up from Savannah to Jersey, and you've never lived anywhere else, it's a whole new world.
yeah.
Like I was like, it's a new state. No, it was a new country for me. And then I didn't have a plan, so so yeah, it's not an easy area to just easily acclimate into if you don't come from something like it.
Yeah. Well, and listen, moving to a whole new area and experiencing that is also a growth journey, right? For you.
Oh yeah,
Tremendous.
learning how people think differently.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, but it forced me in a situation where I've now had to talk to thousands of people at this point,
yeah,
and it's interesting how we all want the same thing, we just want it in different ways, and so we're all the same. All the wars that end up happening typically have to do with someone's different. It might be land, but okay, it's not my land, it's your land. It's different, right? It's just something different, right? That's
yeah.
where a lot of strife between larger strife comes from, is just people being different, but we're not. We're all the same people. We want to be happy. We want to be fulfilled. We want to have impact and meaning. And even if it's small, right? I've got a friend that he just wants to get by and he doesn't want to work too hard. For him, that's his purpose, to get by and enjoy and not have to work too hard. And then
Mm.
you got the other, Tony Robbins of the bunch.
Oh,
They
yeah.
want to make a huge impact, right? So
You've been
we all
driven.
want to live and be happy. That's kind of really the core of all of us.
Well, and the world has to be in balance and have harmony. So you need a mix of
Mm-hmm.
all different types of people to achieve some state of balance. If everybody was achievement driven, it'd be a battle. Everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Can't everybody be the manager, right? What's that saying at work? Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So you grew to start kind of questioning everything and trying to understand what your mind, brain, body were telling you, right? Because the mind answer, the heart answer. How did that all work out?
So about a year ago, I think it was about a year ago. I won't fight myself over the time frame, but that was where I learned through different people who I listened to, read books, listened to their talks.
Mhm.
The brain, the body, the mind, whatever you want to call it, is wired for these three basic things primarily. And left to its own devices, it's what it's going to go after. It wants to seek pleasure, it wants to avoid pain, and it wants to fill the voids.
Yeah.
And now all that comes down to perception. What
And
we
by the way,
perceive as those items.
I would say the voids are unfulfilled needs. Humans are need-driven organisms. There are
Mm-hmm.
needs at different levels, and people have different
Sure.
mixtures of these physiological and emotional needs. And the body is, wired to go pursue those, right?
Yes.
That's why
I
Maslow's hierarchy turned out to be so valid, I think.
I believe there's legitimate needs. I'm right there with you, but there's legitimate needs, and then there's filling that legitimate need in wrong ways.
Oh, yeah.
right? Just sticking something in there because I think it'll work, right? I use the story of a puzzle, right? If you take a puzzle and you're putting the last piece in and it's a piece from another puzzle, it's not going to fit. It doesn't belong there, right? And then you start trying to force that puzzle piece in, and then you're hammering on that puzzle piece. You're messing up that puzzle piece, and
Uh-huh.
that puzzle piece can be a job, it can be a business, it can be a person that you're trying to put into your puzzle, and it doesn't belong. Or maybe you're lucky and you've got the puzzle piece that's cut just the right shape and it'll fit.
Yeah.
But what's on the top and the surface doesn't belong. And so you'll stick it in there and you'll be happy for now. But what happens later on when you're not happy, that puzzle piece has to go. And if you've ever put a puzzle together, when
Yep.
you pull out a puzzle
I've been
piece you've
doing
put
some.
in, you're always pulling out other pieces right along with it. So now you're having to pull that piece out that didn't belong and
Yeah.
then fix what did belong, and it's wasted time and pain. So that's when I say filling a void. It is filling a need, generally speaking. It's just not necessarily the good and legitimate way.
That's right. It is how you end up filling it, and
Mm-hmm.
what needs, start to take priority in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really interesting. And I know in this whole thought about, going back to questioning everything and kind of thinking there's only a certain way to doing things, you like to say that you're open to the idea that you aren't where you think you are, as you can only see so much of the picture, right?
Yes. So
Talk more
I
about that realization.
I used to think that adults knew everything, and then I became one. So I thought my mom knew everything, and then again I became an adult. Like, and it's okay. We're not supposed to know everything. No one person can or should. We need to interact. So my strengths, your strengths, we interact together. We fill the whole puzzle together, right? Um, I just lost my train of thought. I went on a tangent. Say the question one more time. Sorry.
Well, being you can only see so much of the picture at once.
Yes,
It's
yes, there we
okay.
go.
So, you like to tell me that, maybe does people develop some unrealistic timelines and things, right? Because
Yes.
they just don't know enough.
What happened for me, and I still do this, you never master, again, like at the beginning. I still, like, just yesterday I was fighting with myself about something I need to have done tomorrow, and I was like, why do I have all this pressure? And I really don't have to have it done, you know what I mean? So what happened is uh, I I realized that all of us learn and know what we know, and we can forecast as much as we can, and we can put together as much of the how as we can, and then we just go and start doing it, and along the way we'll start figuring out the rest. And I had no idea that that's what adults were doing around me, was they were just figuring out as they went. And now you can plan, don't get me wrong. I don't think you should live every day and every year as though you can't plan it or you can't work towards it, but you do what you can, and then you get down the road 10 miles, the life road 10 miles, and then you have a better picture.
Yeah.
Uh, you've got more muscle memory. You always want to question your habits, but so for example, the first time I drove a car, it was a manual, it was a Ford Ranger, it's like a 96 or something. I couldn't check the speedometer. I couldn't check the mirrors. All I could focus on was keep it between the ditches and don't hit anything else. Like, I couldn't. And now, like, don't tell the cops, I can eat, I can
Yeah.
change the music, I can shift gears, and I can take it all in.
Oh, yeah. Well, this comes down to the subconscious, learning these complex tasks.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, driving a car. Eventually, from driving and practice, your subconscious understands driving, masters it, and you can literally be off thinking about something else for a minute and suddenly realize, oh my God, I wasn't paying attention. But your subconscious was literally watching,
Yeah.
driving, and doing everything while you were doing it. And had something happen, you would have immediately consciously been pulled back into that moment. So
With a good old adrenaline rush while you're at it.
yeah. So let's talk a little about some practices, because this is always a channel where we try to share things that, people can apply in their own lives if they need to. And becoming more self-aware is certainly a part of the journey, but being able to bring about some change of that wiring that was
Mm-hmm.
put down when you were in this hypnotic state as a child. is something many people need to do, right? People do have these reflexive actions and things and that are part of this programming. Um, so let's talk about that a little bit, right? That
Hmm.
notion that, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind are really, two very different things. And, what conclusions did you draw along the way as you began to dig into this and realize what?
So I think one of the things I've realized is the biggest thing in the last few years is you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons. For example, let's say if I had slighted you or wronged you in some way or put you out in some way, and I come and truly apologize to you, like, hey, I am really sorry. What can I do to make this right? I did the right thing and with the right motivation because I just really wanted. If I slight you and then I come up and I'm just trying to get something out of you, right? If the apology comes right also when I need something, or if it's like not genuine, you know,
Yeah.
hey, sorry, it happened. Sorry, I'm not sorry, right? If it's not genuine, it's just, hey, I'm sorry, you're doing it because, well, those two different things. The why is the difference, and we get those autonomic things where the subconscious takes care of for us is great because it saves time and effort. The brain wants to be efficient. But if it's the wrong thing or the wrong reason and we never question it, then that's how we get so far off our path. And
Mhm.
then it takes so much more questioning and fixing, you know? So for me, it started with just questioning why I did so many things the way I did, or why I thought what I thought. Not saying I was trying to manipulate people with saying I'm sorry or anything, but I would,
That was an example. We get it.
yeah, as an example. But I would start doing something of habit and go, why am I doing this? And it could be as simple as there's this group that I knew that met on Tuesdays, and it never was in my mind until I learned this pretty girl was there. And then I was like, the next Tuesday, I remembered it. And I had never had any interest in going, right? And it wasn't even a girl I was really interested in. She was just pretty. So the mind remembered it, right?
Mhm.
So, well, I'm not saying it's right or wrong to go, but it's just funny how the brain will pick up these things, and you got to question them.
So
I
your method of questioning them is self-reflection, right? It's oftentimes maybe at the end of the day, you'll go reflect back on what happened that day. Because many people, I'd say most people, don't put reflection time into their day.
It's throughout the day. Actually, you're right. Don't put it into the day, not just at the end of the day, because then everything's happened. You've forgotten it, right? We can only remember like the last one, maybe two things. I'm constantly self-reflecting in the day.
Mhm.
Um, it could be why I let myself be fearful. What am I afraid of? Right. The number one, I still fight it. So having to make those cold calls. Sometimes I just go right into it, no problem. Other times, I I won't even notice it's happening. I just start getting distracted with these things I need to do, and I'm on it, and I'm like, why? And then I have anxiety too. So why do I have anxiety? I'm not afraid to make calls. Like I love talking to people. Why am I avoiding the work? And it's just an anxiety. I still haven't figured that one out. Why I'm anxious. I think it comes down to I'm afraid of rejection because
Probably. I
who
think
isn't,
any,
right? Who doesn't want it?
yeah, that's the hardest thing for salespeople to overcome is it's just not personal, it's business. And
Yeah,
um,
exactly. But it's throughout those moments, all through the day. Why did I get angry in traffic? Right? There's no reason to be angry in traffic. You're going to get there when you get there. And when you get angry, you may never make it because you might get angry and do something stupid and crash, right? So why am I angry in traffic? Oh, because I didn't leave early enough. Why didn't I leave early enough? Oh, because I was doing something I wanted to do instead of what I should have done. So I should just be mad at myself
yeah,
and not traffic. What lesson did I learn from that? Don't be mad at traffic and flicking other people off. Again, I don't do that, but but it's question your motives. And for me, it's it's only in the last 3 or 4 years. There's some people I had to call. Remember earlier I said, hey, make sure you call and talk to people about the things you've gone through, give them forgiveness.
yeah.
That gives you the ability to take the power away from that pain and hurt and get rid of it. And that's true. But I also had to call and apologize because there's things I said and did in my older days that I wouldn't do again now, because I would like to think I wouldn't do. I don't know. We're all human. We make mistakes, but I've now made the questions enough in my head and made it a thing where I'm like, wait, do I want to do this? Why do I want to do it? What's driving me? What am I going to get out of this? Is it hurt, or is it joy because I'm doing something for myself, or I'm doing something for others?
Yeah, self-reflection is incredibly powerful. I think people need to do more of it. One of the things we tell companies is to, build think time into their people's days, because, if you really want to build an innovative company, you've got to have some organized time and method of allowing people to think and have ideas come from the subconscious into the conscious mind. And then you could start to mine that as a resource. But, people in their own lives, and this is not corporate, should have self-reflection, think time. Do you meditate at all?
I
Do that, right? Yeah.
Not really. I'm just thinking through the day. I want to learn more about meditation. I want to learn more about someone who can just sit there. Because for me, just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
Now I know it's doing something, but to me, it's doing nothing, and I don't do that very well. My mind has always got to be working on something. So I do. If you know how to meditate, I definitely need to learn how to do that.
I'm
But for me,
okay at it, but you need to find somebody who is just really, really good. There's so many people out there just far better than me. I do think this notion of, discovering something that, you come upon a program in your subconscious that is causing you to react in certain situations out of, let's say, fear or want. And you need to overwrite it and create a new habit that will allow you to actually replace that program, because the way adults replace the programming that's in the subconscious is by creating entirely new habits that overwrite what's there. There are other methods we could talk about too, but that is the one that, habit is what creates new programming in the subconscious. And, you've discovered that along the way yourself.
Yes. I learned that your habits are working for you or against you. And the other thing you just said, the key word is replace. It's very rare for anyone to just go, that habit's a bad habit, and just cut it. Very rare. It's almost always replaced. I'm not a scientist, so I won't put a number on it, but I know it's a very high number that it's almost always replaced. And that's the only way I've been able to, when I've found, because we're not just all inclusively aware at any ever point. Again, life keeps changing. Situations change, new habits pop up that you didn't know you had. For me, like the word so. Now it's finally in my head that I say it a lot, and now I'm working on replacing it with just a breath or something.
Yeah.
But becoming aware of the habits and in bite size. Like, we can't take all of our, we'll call them bad habits, at once and fix them all or replace them all at once. Like, you got to pick one or two and work on it. We're humans. We have limits to our willpower. We have limits to what we can do in a day, and not beating ourselves up. That was something I did. Oh, I need to be better at this. Oh, I need to be better. And I still do that. I'm still working on replacing that habit with becoming grateful for where I've been and where I've gotten to in spite of where I'm at. And so replacing that, that's a bad habit. Replacing the habit of beating yourself up.
Yes.
With
too many people do that. I agree with you. And having a different mode of reflection on things, seeing things differently, and building, intentionally over time the habit to have gratitude for what you have.
Yes.
Versus, some grief over it. So that's really interesting. I think habit is a really, really important thing that, everybody should think about. The other one that, I've dug into this over time, and certainly habit is the one I use. But hypnosis is another one that people can certainly look into. And people have had real results with that. I've never done it, can't talk to it. I've certainly read about people who've done it and said, it was success. It always comes down to the individual and the practitioner. What else have you found about changing? You know,
You kind of hit the nail on the head with that. Other people, as much as it is self-awareness, like you know yourself, but when you're, I like to tell people in life, we're in our own forest.
yeah,
And you can only see, it's kind of back to that where I was talking about earlier, you can see how far you can go. It's kind of that forest. You can only see what you can see from the perspective you can see. And to have wise counsel outside that forest and the different areas of life that you need them to go, that's the wrong tree, or hey, move over to
yeah,
45 degrees around that tree, metaphorically speaking, and to help you to see. So for example, if you're married and you make a new friend, your wife, let's say you've been married for 15 years, your wife knows you pretty well. You make a new friend and you start changing some habits, you may not even realize you're absorbing them. Your wife's going to know, and
yes,
then she's going to probably call you out, rightfully so. So it's not just self-awareness, there is that analyzing yourself, but there is seeking wise counsel and
yeah,
getting guidance, and the hypnotherapist is one of them.
yeah,
I'm highly intrigued by the concept of it.
yeah.
I have a hypnotherapist lined up.
Yeah, and I would say that finding a good mentor or counselor is really, really important. There's that famous, Johari window
Mm-hmm.
where, there's four windows, and the first window is where the things that you know about yourself that other people observe and also know about you. Then
Mm-hmm.
there's another window, which is there's things you know about yourself that no one else knows. Then there's another window, which is there are things that other people know about you that you don't know, right? And that's where the
Mm-hmm.
counselor really comes in. There's also another window, which is things that you and other people don't know. Like you could be an incredible pianist, but you've never played the piano. So these are untapped skills and things that you have inside you. And it's incredibly valuable to have a great mentor who
Well,
can
and
see
just
things that you can't see about yourself and be vulnerable enough to listen to them because it's real guidance.
the only way to make it through this life, in my opinion, with true joy and true success, is vulnerability. When you look at some of the most successful people on the planet, there's sometimes they're the ones with what we consider success anyways.
Yeah,
They're the ones that are, we'll say, just the most messed up, or the one that I hate to go to, but it's such a good example, is Robin Williams.
yeah,
He was one of the most successful people. He was a comedian. He went to movies. He sold so many movies. He wanted to be known for not being a funny man, and he won a Golden Globe or whatever it was for that, or Oscar, I think it was called. I want to say he did Broadway. Like, it's just so many different facets of success. And he could walk into a room and just absolutely light the room up. He could make jokes in the middle of bombings to the troops overseas. An incredibly astounding man who committed suicide
I know. It's
because for
tragic.
whatever was wrong, he was not vulnerable enough to admit to whoever it was to help him figure it out. He may not even know.
Yeah, he may not have known. I mean, the whole notion of depression and, brain chemistry and all these things are very, very complicated. It's a
Mm-hmm.
shame to lose, so many great people to tragic events like that. Listen, I think it's been really interesting. Do you have any parting comments that you'd like to leave with our guests?
There's a saying, I won't say what book it's from, but there's a saying that says, the truth shall set you free. And we hear that quoted a lot.
Yeah.
And the part that's always left off, almost always, is to know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So my last parting piece would be to find that know the truth part. And the only way you can get there is questioning yourself, how you do, why you do, and get to root causes that
Yeah.
in your heart, but until you get to that questioning phase, will you get to those parts in your heart?
That's really true. So listen, I think it's been super. I'm glad that, you became self-aware and have had really just a great journey as you've been able to change the way you perceive things, the way you view things, becoming more appreciative for the things that you have and what happened and the growth you've had along the way, and learning that habit is a powerful force that every adult could take advantage of. So look, I wish you all the best on your journey, and thank you for coming on People Productivity Channel.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy. Bye.